Welcome to the General Longstreet's Museum, the William Nenney House, located in Russellville, Tennessee. Used as a headquarters for General Longstreet and his officers as they wintered in eastern Tennessee. Come along with us as we walk through history as we go around the grounds and the first room inside of the house.
Longstreet's headquarters, a cold command. In the winter of 1863 to 1864, with heavy losses during the siege of Knoxville, Confederate General James Longstreet led his men out of the city on December 4th, 1863. On December 10th, Longstreet was given command of all forces in upper East Tennessee, striking the Union Army with a surprise attack. Longstreet won the Battle of Bean Station on December 14, 1863. Moving the army to Russellville, Longstreet and his staff established their headquarters in the William Nenney House. The first floor rooms became their command center. The soldiers built their winter hut camps along the railroad and also between the Holston and Nolichucky rivers. Longstreet's cavalry protected the defensive line stretching between Rutledge to the north and Dandridge to the south. Faced with the task of feeding about 25,000 men, the Army took command of most of the mills, tanneries, and blacksmith shops in the area. Cane Mill near Russellville ground corn day and night to feed the Army. On December 29, 1863, a large Federal cavalry and infantry force defeated part of Longstreet's cavalry at Mossy Creek. By January 1st, 1864, the temperature of 29 degrees below zero halted all hostilities. Several other engagements occurred during the winter as each side probed the other's defenses and foraged for supplies in the area. They included Hayes Ferry, December 24th, 1863, Dandridge, January 16th and 17th, 1864. Fair Garden, January 26th and 27th, 1864. And Blant's Hill on January 28, 1864. The Federal defeat at Blant's Hill was the last fight of Longstreet's forces in this area. A larger and better supplied Union Army failed to remove Longstreet from Russellville. The Nenney House served as headquarters until Longstreet moved to Greenville on February 26, 1864. In yellow says Longstreet's headquarters was originally known as the Nenney House. It was built late in 1830s for William Nenney, whose family members were prominent farmers and merchants in the Russellville area. General James Longstreet, courtesy of the Library of Congress. Winter camp illustration, conditions similar to those endured by Longstreet's Confederates here during the winter of 1863 and 64, courtesy of the Library of Congress. Field office used by General Joseph B. Kershaw, 1st Corps, Army of Northern Virginia, courtesy of Mike Beck. And this is part of the Tennessee Civil War Trails, and their website is civilwartrails.org. Here's a look at the house. Here's a horse mounting step. They would step on that to get on their horses. Over there, that's labeled an office. We'll have to look at it in a minute. And there we have the battle flag and the top flag. I can't remember what it's called. General Longstreet Museum, William Nenney House. We're here at the Baker Rains Research Library and Gift Shop. Really friendly folks here. You should come by and see them. That looks to be an old smokehouse or a tool shed. They got picnic tables. There's an old salt kettle or some other type of kettle. There's an old well, and on top of it they have a pump. Don't know if it works or not, but that's a nice little pump. That's one of those, as my grandma used to call it, come to dinner bell. Coming up, got a few mannequins here on the porch. I guess they were showing some of the clothing from the time. Over here's some interesting big coffee pots and spittoons. Other little knickknacks. That's part of the fireplace. Great. That says wire bale canning crook, 1898. That says Chucky Valley canning crock, small Chucky Valley canning crock. There's a dough bowl. There's a crock milk pitcher. Now I can't read about the basket. Let's see. There's an egg basket. Green County wax seal canning jar. Small wax seat canning, wax seat crock jar, and a sugar bucket. Longstreet Museum evacuation maps. Several other things. There is a marble, I think it's marble, might be bronze statue of this same soldier outside of the courthouse in Trenton, Tennessee. Same statue. There's an old buttermilk churn. Here we go. Historical marker sign. IB-30 Longstreet's billet. Lieutenant General James Longstreet's corps occupied this area during the winter of 1863 and 1864 with the mission of securing East Tennessee to the Confederacy. He and his staff occupied this house at that time. Brigadier General Kershaw's troops were to the north of the road and McLaw's division to the south. McLaw's lived at Hayslope. There's some old kerosene lamps, an old candle holder. I think that's a powder canteen. And that's a water canteen. Tin cups, an old iron crock. There is a very old American flag there. The Great Indian War Path. Great Indian Warpath Monument. The monument was originally placed on Highway 11E toward Greenville, Tennessee, at former Cheeks Crossroads, just before you got to Russellville. It was placed by the Tennessee Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1931-1932. It was placed on a base made of smooth river rock about the size of large eggs or oranges held together with cement. The Great Indian Warpath was the central branch of the network of trails in eastern North America used by both northern expeditions and savage invasions of neighboring tribes near and far. But it was also showed immigration, hunting, and embassies of peace. The monument was vandalized in 2020 and broken into 3 pieces, as you can see. It was retrieved by Mr. Joe James and glued back together. The monument will be displayed here at the Longstreet Museum until such time as the state of Tennessee furnishes the widening of 11E, and then they will put it back up in the original location on the general vicinity. That is an old picture viewer. And there's a patent for it. And they have cards for it. You put those in there and they look 3D by looking through those eye sockets. Russellville and environs. Situated between the Holston and Nolichucky rivers, Russellville occupies a fertile valley long inhabited by native peoples. The famous Boone Trace and Buffalo Trail from Kentucky to North Carolina ran through the area. White residents settled here in 1785, when Revolutionary War veterans received land grants from North Carolina. Among the first were Captain George Russell and Colonel James Roddy. That is 1862 map showing Russellville on East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad line, courtesy of the Library of Congress. Morristown, 42 miles from Russellville with 8 miles from Knoxville, are located in luxuriant valleys between Mansanutton and the North Mountains. The mountain scenery in this section is magnificently grand. New York Times reporter, June 13, 1865. Originally part of Jefferson County and close to Hawkins and Granger County, Russellville served as crossroads town. The East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad connecting Knoxville and Bristol gave Russellville strategic significance during the Civil War. Along with the depot, the thriving community had a drugstore, theater, and academy. Farming, especially vegetables and tobacco, cattle raising, grist and paper mills, and the timber industry flourished. We have a beautiful camp. One could walk for miles upon miles and never get out of the woods. I shall begin to build me a house because timber is more than abundant. Private Samuel A. Birney, Cobb's Georgia Legion, Russellville, January 26, 1864. Caption says, General James Longstreet's men commandeered this mill during the Civil War, courtesy of Bill Henderson. Eliza Kane was a spinner for the Shuttle Crafters Weaving Center in Russell County of Bill Henderson. View of Russellville Depot Street from the Nenney side yard, courtesy of Bill Henderson. That's it on the bottom. When the war began, Jefferson County had more than 16,000 residents, including about 2,000 African Americans. By 1870, the population had risen close to 19,500, including almost 3,000 black residents. Just 647 people resided in Russellville, including 119 of African Americans. A post-war black community developed south of Whitesburg. In 1870, Russellville became part of newly formed Hamlin County, named after a Hawkins County lawyer. Morristown was chosen as a county seat. William Nenney, son of the family's original settlers in Russellville, served as one of Hamlin's County's first justices of the peace. And this is driving distances from Russellville. And schedule of passenger trains due in Russellville. The number 3, number 4, number 1, number 312, the 49, 42, 311, 2, and I'm not going to read all those times. And it says numbers 41 and 42 stop for passengers during the summer season. That's courtesy of Bill Henderson. Now that's too faded to read, but it looks like a railroad map and maybe a county map. This is a caption about the Nenney family through the years. Married in Virginia in 1796, Patrick and Lucy Nenney raised their family in the newly created state of Tennessee. Patrick, a native of Ireland, established a store and farm in Russellville. Between 1797 and 1814, he and Lucy had 6 daughters and 3 sons, all of whom lived to adulthood. That says the Nenney family house, courtesy of Citizen Tribune. There's a freight tariff. It says freight rates during the Civil War when Charles G. Nenney was a depot agent. Courtesy of the Calvin M. McClure Historical Collection, Knox County Public Library, Knoxville, Tennessee. In 1834, son William Nenney purchased this land and moved onto it a small house, the wing you are standing in, during the next decade or two. The main house was built onto this wing and faced the turnpike. Sometime before 1850, William's brother Charles moved into the house with his family, a merchant farmer and slaveholder. Charles helped found the East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad and served as one of the first trustees of the Bethesda Presbyterian Church. He died in 1857, leaving behind wife Sarah and 6 children.
Civil War era descriptions of the Nenney house as Miss Nenney's house likely referred to Sarah Nenney. In 1860, she was the head of the household and listed real estate holdings worth $3,000 and a personal estate of $7,500. That year, she still had 3 children in school and was mourning the death of her daughter Lucy. Quote, he died at the house of Mrs. Nenney in Russellville, Jefferson County, Tennessee. Unquote. James L. Kane, describing his father's death, July 11, 1864. The Nenney name is spelled many different ways in the historical record. Sarah Nenney's 3 sons supported the Confederacy. William served the 3rd Confederate Engineers, James joined the 6th Texas Cavalry, and Charles served the Russellville's depot agent. All survived the war. After the war, Charles is said to have displayed his framed pardon from President Andrew Johnson at the house. In 1877, Charles married Laura Ellen Smith, known as Ellen. After resigning from the railroad in 1886, Charles farmed and engaged in lumber dealing. He died in 1909, and Ellen, like her mother-in-law Sarah before her, lived for decades as a widow in this house. Ellen's daughter Lucy inherited the house, and Lucy's son Charles was the last Nenney to live there. In 1925, a newly constructed highway, Highway 11E, now known as the Andrew Johnson Highway, ran behind the Nenney house. The family reorientated the house by moving the older wing from the opposite side of the house and building a new front entrance and porch. The Nenneys marked the wing's original placement by 2 large trees in the front yard. The first photograph is the Nenney family and house, courtesy of the Citizen Tribune. The next photograph is freight rates during the Civil War, when Charles G. Nenney was the depot agent, courtesy of Calvin M. McClung, Historical Collection, Knox County Public Library, Knoxville, Tennessee. The third photograph is the tombstone of Charles G. Nenney and Ellen Smith Nenney, Bethesda Church Cemetery, courtesy of Mike Beck. The last photograph is survey crew for Highway 11E near the Nenney House, courtesy of Bill Henderson. The quote reads, quote, "They are Presbyterians, in which the church he has been a deacon in for 5 years. He is a Democrat, first voting for Buchanan," unquote. From the biography of Charles Nenney, 1814 to 1909, in Godspeed History of Tennessee, 1887. Thank you for walking through history with us as we discover General Longstreet's museum. Next week, we will continue through the rooms of the house and discover what historical pieces of treasures are inside. Thank you for supporting Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries of Appalachian history.